So we're going to start today's class. I'm just going to just share the PowerPoint so that we can all be on the same page and we'll go through together. All right, so here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what we're doing today. We'll be looking at classroom settings, various designs, and the interactions that can occur as a result of those designs. And then finally, we'll be touching a little bit on gender bias in the classroom, not necessarily related to classroom settings, but that can really occur. So today we want to examine different classroom settings as a physical climate. Remember, for our course, we're doing the sociology of science teaching. We're looking at the interactions between students, interactions between students and teachers, and part of that is how does the classroom physical environment actually maybe facilitate those interactions or even negate against positive interaction. So we want to look at different classroom settings and impact on teaching and learning of science. We want to look at the analysis of those, how the interactions that occur in the classroom, and finally, to what extent does gender bias occur in the classroom. So that's basically the three main things that we'll be doing, our objectives for today. So to examine, analyze, and to evaluate. The first thing I want us to do is an inventory of our own classrooms. Now, from the look of it, from the physical setting there, you're really not in a large classroom. So I'm not quite sure if this exercise or activity that I'm asking you to do next, if it should be related to where you are, or maybe a classroom that you were last in. So I'm going to bring up an inventory sheet. I'm not quite sure if you were able to get it before because I had to scan it, but just 2 seconds and I'll bring it up so that we can go through. Just hold on.
No, stop it. Is it disturbing anybody?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can you see what's on my screen?
No.
All right.
Yeah, I could see.
Are you still seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Are you still seeing the PowerPoint or are you seeing something else?
PowerPoint.
All right.
The PowerPoint.
All right, there we go. This, looking at well, it's kind of difficult for your own classrooms right now, but I want you to think of a classroom setting that you have been in. Right, you identify one, and I want you to just think on these questions and agree, disagree according to the questions that are asked. So let me make sure it's large enough that you can really read it. Is that large enough?
Yes.
All right. Great.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. So it says physical environment, and it's asking you really to evaluate your physical environment. So there are around 10 questions or so for you to respond to. So the way it is in our school, agree or disagree. 1 means disagreement, heading to more of agreement as you go from scale 1 to 5. And there are the questions that are being asked. So you rate your own classroom, just for the opening exercise here. So there are 10 questions. I have shifted the screen a bit, so you can see questions 4 through to 10. I'm assuming that you are through the others. As soon as you're finished, let me know.
No.
Are we finished?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Benton, how are you?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I'm done.
Okay, all right. Now, the thing about a questionnaire like this is you might not be in a position to immediately make changes. Okay, we know that. You're not the administrators, you're not the principals as yet. But one of the reasons why we want to expose you to a class like this is for you to have a voice, for you to be able to, in light of how your understanding of the impact of physical environment, we're hoping at the end of the class, that with your understanding of how the physical environment can impact the teaching and learning of really any subject, how your voice might be one to advocate for changes to facilitate that process wherever you are, whatever school or institution you are at. So even for question 1, where it says space is used efficiently for storing materials and equipment, the fact that that question is posed there, if your school, if that's the way it is at your school, agree or disagree, it is suggesting that this is something that needs to be accommodated. So if it's not happening, then we need at some point where we can get our voices heard to be an advocate for that change to occur. Similarly, throughout, school activities are arranged so disturbing noises are kept to a minimum. I'm not quite sure how effective that occurs at schools, but what is it like in your schools there in Dominica in terms of disturbing noises? It doesn't say what those sources could be. It could be the gardener mowing the lawn. It could be a new development across the road. It could be just internal noises from within the school. And in terms of students going on break, what is it like at your school there, Samuel?
Okay. Yet to me, I think it's very quiet. The only noise that comes to my mind is vehicle passing around the school,
Okay.
because the school is in the city, so there are vehicles on and passing by both sides of the school, and some noise from students sometimes.
Okay. Right. And of course, can't move the school, right?
Sure. We can
So,
move the school, we can move the road.
there should be a zone, right? There should be a zone demarcated saying, no noise school zone or something. There are signs there.
No, there are no signs.
Okay. Oh. Do you have vending tables?
Because
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Samuel.
no, like it's in the city, and I think we have two main roads surrounding the school.
Ah,
And it's like more like one road in and one road out to the countryside.
right.
So most time every vehicle have to pass there to go to the countryside and coming from countryside coming to the city.
Okay, okay.
So it's a very busy road.
Yes, yes, I understand you. Do you think it is, does it disturb the students or the teaching process?
Sometimes it
Sometimes,
does
yes.
because some like with their loud music, boom, 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 white class going on.
Right, and then the students get up to have party. Right.
Yes.
I can, I can
Or the
see it.
bikers who pass and rev their vehicle.
Right, right. Well, as we're saying that as we go through this class today, you know, it's to even just bring to attention maybe there needs to be signs put up. Maybe that's something that you can advocate for your school. That there are times when yes, it's a busy road, it's a popular road, it's a route to and from places that people need to commute on. But at the same time, maybe your voices can be you can now raise your voice and say, hey, this is something that needs to be addressed. Put up signs, have persons to try and enforce them, whatever it takes. But as we go through today's class, what I really want to do is to sensitize you to how important it is that the physical setting is as much as possible at it eliminates barriers to the learning process. That's the key thing. How about you in Bermuda? Are there any things, so I'm just going to go globally now, are there any descriptions here of the physical environment of the schools that you have been in now as a student yourself, perhaps, that you see a need for improvement? So this is, I'm looking at any of these 10 questions now. Tracy, Ashley, Jason, anybody?
I don't know really. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in the schools aside from the school I went to. I guess it was okay.
Right, I recognize that. So it would have to be based on the school that you went to. So based on the descriptions here, do you think that your school had these things covered in terms of they were they allowed for learning?
Yeah, we had pretty good resources in the schools that I went to.
All right. And you had places for the students to work undisturbed, or they had spaces that they could go to outside of the library or in a classroom.
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. That's good.
Some of them even had prayer rooms.
Interesting.
Really? Here?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't know about that.
interesting. Okay. Where were you, Jason? Just
I
kidding.
don't know.
Not in the prayer room.
Yeah.
All right. How about you, Linton? Is there anything from your experience? Maybe you're currently teaching, so your situation will be similar to Dominica, where they can describe
Yeah.
their school setting. So how about your school setting that you're teaching at? Tell us about that one.
Okay, well, in addition to what Dominica said, well, I agree. But you also find there's residential houses there. And most times those people, they burn garbage,
Ah,
yeah, during school hours. And that causes a distraction for the school students because they complain, they say they want to go home, let us go home, send us home. They make postcards,
oh,
right? Yeah.
okay,
But eventually we speak to the people and then they turn off the fire.
okay, all right. So there's a relationship between the community and the school in that regard.
All right.
Okay. All right. So what we're doing is just looking at the different ways in which schools can be assessed in their physical environment. This is just one way, and this is really globally. So whether it be for within the classroom, that the classroom itself is clean, that the areas of the school, that it's clean, that the teachers have a comfortable place for planning, that libraries are resourced, well resourced, that there's equipment, there's material. Those things have to be in place to ensure that at least the learning environment has a fair chance of being a successful one. And what we're going to be looking at are some different ways in which the classrooms can be arranged, because the arrangement of the classroom, so this questionnaire was really global. Some things you can have direct control over, some things you just have to be a voice and advocate for change, but some things really can be just out of your control. But what is under your control to a certain extent is the classroom setting. Some things you can move around, some things you can't. But let's just have a quick look at some of the ways in which the classroom can be arranged and what are the pros and cons for having such arrangements. All right, so here we go again. Now, some of the interactions that can occur in the classrooms, we invite in some questions about what are the characteristics? Is the learning environment competitive? How do the students interact with each other? Do they shout? Do they get to speak to each other at all? Is it a classroom where their voices cannot be heard? Then the question is asked of the teacher, how do my actions encourage or discourage the learning environment that I want in the classroom? So if I think that my philosophy is one where students can interact, they can, share ideas, I want them to do group work, but at the same time, I'm not allowing them to interact. I want to have a quiet classroom, no talking. Then there's going to be this conflict in terms of we want them to be able to share their ideas. We need to give them such opportunities, but at the same time, we don't want them to be disruptive, talking about having side conversations. So we need to do a balancing act where we encourage dialogue, we encourage communication, structured, supervised, but at the same time, we don't want to shut them down. So we're looking at some of the classroom interactions that can occur and how the settings can influence those interactions. How does this affect student learning, or that's the classroom interactions? What's the normal, response, or the normal way in which this kind of discourse or conversations or dialogue occur in the classroom? Is it always a noisy, free for all, everybody speaking all at once, or do you have a structured, organized way to identify persons to speak? Are you addressing students only at the front, or do you remember students who are seated at the back or to the side? What are the norms of discourse in the classroom? Who sets that? Who sets the pace? Who determines, who's going to speak? And how is it reinforced? Do we say to our students, okay, we need to raise our hands one at a time? Basic stuff about the classroom interactions. Who participates in the discussions? The persons at the front, the persons who are always quick off the mark? Do we allow persons to get a time to think before they start speaking? Is it the persons, do we pick on persons at the back because they're further away, but we neglect the ones at the front? As again, it's a balancing act. As persons participate, why do some choose not to participate? Is it that they can't see, they're not hearing? Is it because we never asked them to? Things like that. And again, the classroom interaction is based on the physical environment. So if students are all clustered together, you might find that they're busy talking to each other. If they're far apart, then we're not getting the chance for the interactions that we want, the positive interactions that we want. So we're going to look at some of the classrooms to see how these classroom interactions can be facilitated. Following so far? So the classroom interactions are going to be set to some extent by, yes, you, the teacher, but by the physical environment. So some of the classroom interactions are as follows. Student and student, you, the teacher, and the student. You might not think of student and textbook as an interaction, but certainly that is one. Student and instructions given, that's another classroom interaction. Because I don't know about you, but when we give instructions, sometimes students don't follow. Why is it that they're not following? Is it that they don't hear, they don't understand, they're not ready, they're not prepared? And finally, the student and the physical environment. So these are 5 basic ways or 5 basic interactions that can occur in our classrooms. But basically, the physical environment can help to set or create the tone or the pace at which these interactions occur. Let me just get a quick input. So for example, student and textbook. If students don't have proper desks or chairs, then they might be inhibited in not wanting to share their textbook or to use their textbook, for example. Teacher and student, if the teacher is far removed from the student, there's no, for want of a better word, intimacy between teacher and student. Students might feel alienated from the teacher because the teacher is always, at the front, almost, like in a dictatorial role. So the classroom interactions can also be affected by that. Student to student, how do we seat students, friends together? Are they paying attention? Things like that. So let's look at some of these classroom settings. How would you describe this classroom setting? Whether you know the name or describe it. Tell me what you think of this setting. Anybody?
Round table.
Round table. All right. So what do you think this setting would do to the teaching and learning process?
More interactions between the students' responses. So maybe, I don't know, just looking at the other students around you can have a different response in whatever subject you're being taught sociologically. See how the others are reacting.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Well, thanks. Yes, you identified it correctly. It's a round table. Everyone can really see what everyone else is doing. And let me invite. So that's what you have said so far. Just repeat what you have said. Linton, what do you think of this classroom setting? This is a round table. I think you're in a round table now. No, you're the only person at the table.
Okay. Well,
What else can
yeah, it's a circular.
Right.
Yeah, it's a circular setting. And I could see 2 students at the back and 2 at the front.
Right.
And I could see their attention, their focus on the professor. Yeah, that's basically it.
All right. Samuel, you think there's any disadvantage to this setting?
The advantage that comes to mind is the students are treated as if they are in one group because they are together, and it will be easy for students to see and hear who is talking among themselves because they can see directly because they are just beside each other. So to me, the class is being treated as if they are one group, which is very good.
Right. Okay. Do you
Another advantage.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Another advantage that I observe is that the teacher can see every student. So he can control the classroom setting a lot more easier in that format.
Right. Okay. So it seems as if it's a win-win on both sides. Students can see each other. It promotes learning because, as Samuel said, it seems as if they're in one group. And the teacher certainly can keep an eye on everyone. All right.
Yes.
Teachers now. Is this the regular setting as far as we have been exposed to in our classes?
Nope.
No.
How feasible is this? You can see that they can be moved, but how feasible is this in secondary school?
I think in the lower form it's made easier, and it depends on how many students in the class.
Right,
But like in science, the student comes to the lab.
right,
In the lab, we use the countertop,
right,
which cannot be moved.
right, right.
So it's very it's not possible in the lab to do that.
Right. No, remember I said as we go through this process, one of the things is that you might not be able to change some things, but we want you to become advocates. Now we're going to be looking later on at some class designs, some designs that we'll evaluate. But as we go through, I want to take note and towards the end, I want you to recognize that there are some things that speaking to your head of department, if you're not a head of department yourself, going to your minister, your principal, the ministers of education, to just try and get change. Because the truth is that this is something that's often neglected. If we have persons who can see that there's research work that has been done to say that classroom setting, the environment does influence learning. If we can get more persons that maybe we'll get the resources to pay attention to what we're saying. But that's the key. I sent an article, and that article was really talking about how research informs, and that's important. Research is informing the educational developers that technology, the physical environment, involving people other than the teachers, but stakeholders who are part of this learning process, that if we get that mix right, that will have created an environment that will promote learning. So that article that I sent, I think was entitled, Can the Physical Environment Have an Impact on the Learning Environment? It's really a paper that is talking about how research can help to inform decisions, not what's in your pocket only, but having got this research, how we need to be advocating for some kind of change. All right, quickly, moving on. What about this setting? Anybody can describe it. Do you think that this is a good setting? Do you see what are the pros and the cons? Advantages, disadvantages. And again, how feasible is such a setting in our schools?
Okay. About that setting, what came to mind is it will be very easy for the student to copy once what the other student is doing, because they're sitting just beside each other. Right. So they can easily copy whatever the person sitting beside them is doing.
Okay.
But to me also, it will be easier for the teacher to move to front, to the back of the class, watch both sides. But the problem there is in assessment, the student can easily copy one another.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So an advantage you're identifying is the ease with which the teacher can interact with the students, moving up and down the aisle. But the disadvantage is you might have to rethink how you want them to be seated for some classroom assessments, paper, pencil, and
yes.
test. Anyone else?
Well, I was kind of thinking it's a disadvantage in the sense that there's only space to walk down the middle and the front. So the teacher's really interacting with the students closer to the middle and not as much with the ones on the outside.
Okay. You mean the ones on the
wall? By the wall, yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
And I guess an advantage would be, which kind of relates to what Sam was saying about copying. On the other way, in another sense, it could be an advantage if they were working in groups, because they're already grouped in like groups of threes. So you don't have to do anything around. So that could be an advantage.
Okay. Alrighty. And we're going to look at what style this is. There's another one. No, that looks more like what I grew up on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. Typical rows and columns. Class, teacher, desk at the front, to the side, blackboard. All right, and there's the door. Advantages, disadvantages, anyone?
The advantage of that comes to my mind is it can make each student to be mentally focused to what's going on. There'll be less distraction with like someone sitting beside you. So like you on your seat and you can pay fully attention to what the teacher is saying compared to someone sitting beside you, distracting you one way or the other. You are on your seat yourself and you focus on what the teacher is saying.
Right. Yes, that is definitely a distinct difference between this and the previous ones, that students are seated individually, unlike in this case where they're automatically seated in a small group setting, and here a larger group. All right. Anything else? Anyone wants to make an observation?
One disadvantage that I observe is that depending on where the teacher is in the class, they will not be able to see every student.
Right.
So for example, if the teacher is sitting at their desk, they'll not be able to see the students on the back row.
Right.
And so forth.
Right.
And depending on the height of people, students may not be able to see anything if they're in the middle or the back. That's for sure.
That's a very good point. No, it's a very good point that Tracy has just brought up, because that happens sometimes. Teacher is just addressing the front. So the challenge is, at least, or one of the things that can overcome this, at least these are movable. So the teacher can choose to move things around if they like, depending on what. So this is a nice setting for what Samuel was saying earlier, assessment. They're in their seats, they're on their own, they can do their own individual work. Not that copying can't occur, but at least it will be a bit more obvious if someone intended to. Although they're more skillful nowadays, but the point. Yes, go ahead.
I think that classroom, it has too many desks, so it would be very difficult to move them around. Like you wouldn't be able to get in a round square, in a round table one, there was a lot of space in the middle. You're not going to be able to get all those desks into a round table.
That is true. And that is a situation that we do have in our classes, especially here in Jamaica, overcrowding. I mean, there rarely isn't any, there's hardly any space to move around. And it's similarly, it's difficult for the teacher to move around, and that's not good. A teacher should really have a hands-on, eyes-on what's going on in his or her classroom. So again, an advocate, we're being sensitized to some of the dangers, some of the inhibitions, the negatives, the disadvantages, some classroom settings, and how we need to probably do some promotions in our schools, saying this is not the best. Do your own work beyond this class to find research to say what is the best, how can we go forward at all different schools. Now, wow, what do you think about this one?
This one is nice. Every student can see the board, and the teacher has access to every student.
Right.
In this setting.
Looks more like kindergarten, eh?
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, the resources that they put into these, the early childhood, which is good. But you're right. This is more like what they call a horseshoe setting, or U-shaped. So the teacher has access, easy access to everyone, see what's going on. Again, how feasible is this now in our secondary school? I heard Kamisha.
Depending on the size of the class that you have, it will be feasible. But most of our classes have 20 and up in the number of students. So this setting would be a little bit more difficult to accomplish.
Yes, for sure. What's the class size like for you, Lincoln?
You hear me? I said 30 students in the class.
Oh, sorry, here, 30?
30, yes.
Okay, okay. And on average in Bermuda, what's the class size like?
The younger students, year 7s to 9, is usually about 20, and by the time they get to IB, there's one class that has one student.
That is to what level?
IB.
And how many students in that class?
There's one class that has, actually, there's two classes that have one student in each of them.
Did you say one
One student? Wow.
I'm trying to.
Okay.
What age?
In
Tracy, what age would that be?
That's your 16, 17-year-olds.
One teacher to a student?
In two of our classes right now, in our IB1, there's one student taking a course by herself, and in our IB2, there's one student taking a class by themselves.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
Wow. Like in Dominica,
Yes.
any class less than 5, the subject will not be taught. Any subject with less than 5 students, then the subject will be cancelled.
Right.
Yes, same in St. Lucia. If you go to a class and you have probably, less than probably 10 to, then you don't do that subject.
Right. Right. Because it's, in fact, one of the challenges that's recently occurred here in Jamaica was that 2 schools not performing well. The number of students in the schools, I think maybe less than 500. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. But the government has made a decision that they would close one of the schools and merge them because the student population was just too small to sustain, the resources, the paying of the teachers, etc. So that right now is a recent issue for us here because both schools want to remain open, but one is in an area where the students are just not attending the school. I'm not quite sure why, and the other one is not performing well. So they want to merge the schools so that the resources can be better utilized, and then convert one of the schools, I think, into some technological resource center to meet the needs of the community. But you're both right, Linton and Samuel, that we would never certainly tolerate a one student in a class.
That was a private school, but the government sector is looking at what do you call it? You just said you're like cutting costs by having bigger schools, or we're actually the government schools are faced with a merge. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're up against now. That's what we're doing. So in every parish in Bermuda, you have pretty much the grade school, the primary school for the younger kids, and then you have middle schools scattered throughout for the preteens and teenagers,
Right.
and then the secondary level you have 2 government high schools. So you get funneled into the 2 ending diploma schools, I guess, throughout your government, whereas the private schools you go straight through from primary school to your graduation diploma.
Okay. All right.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Sorry, go again.
No, that's it.
Right. And of course, it's all about funding, So the government certainly will look at ways of cutting costs, saving on money. So I do appreciate what Tracy was saying about one-on-one because it's a private school. I guess for us, it's like, wow, is that possible? But I quite understand. And even one-on-one has its challenges, but we won't go into that. So we have looked at 4 settings so far. So we have a circular setting. Then we have this columnar setting, for want of a better expression. The typical rows and columns, and then this horse-shaped one. Now, as university students and graduates, we are certainly used to this setting. what do you think of this setting? I know it's not secondary, but we have been into settings like this. What was the experience like, since we have probably touched some kind of class that might have looked somewhat similar? Do you remember
Okay.
the experience, Vanessa? Let me get Vanessa in. She has been quiet today.
Okay, I'm Linton from St. Lucia again.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, actually, I studied in Cuba,
Okay.
and this is just a typical setting in Cuba.
Okay.
At the university, we have our conferences. The lecturer would be at the front, and the students would be at the back. But sometimes even we adults as students, we have the tendency to pass papers to the fifth person in the row. Yeah. We behave just like little students at secondary school too, right? Yeah. So sometimes in that area you'd be able to do whatever you want to,
Right.
and you could get away with it because the teacher would not be able to see what's happening.
Okay. All right. What about Vanessa? Thanks very much, Linton. I'm going to come back to that though.
Okay, no problem.
Yes, Vanessa. Were you ever in a setting like this? What was it like?
Our lecture theatres at university were actually bigger than that, and the students in the very back row used to bring in hot plates and fry up bacon for the first lecture of the day. And the lecturer wouldn't notice.
You couldn't even smell it?
No, because the rooms are so big that from the front row you couldn't smell it.
Wow. So much for diffusion.
Yeah, I mean,
They had really good ventilation because it was, I don't know, new buildings, so they had really good ventilation.
So now you know why that setting won't work for secondary school, right? it's more.
And
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
yes, and also what came to mind about this kind of setting is mostly is air conditioned. It's not easy to fit in window. And in this kind of setting, if the air conditioner is not working, God. And also if the lecturer is not loud, like the voice is not loud, those are the back men over here.
Right.
And it's easy for them to come in, student behind, and leave before ending of the class.
Right. So the setting is really for a more mature audience. In other words, it is hoped that persons will take responsibility for their learning. You know, Linton said that they passed papers, even though they were adults, they were acting just like children. I can't even begin to imagine how in the world that happened. But the idea, though, is that it's supposed to be for a more mature audience. And you're all correct that certainly students who are sitting at the back, they might just be totally disconnected from what's going on in the front, and the lecturer doesn't get a chance to interact with the students at all. I mean, he or she is positioned in one place. It's more of a, they would have to use a lot of classroom strategies to get students involved, and when you do your methods course, you'll see how that can be facilitated in such a setting. But that certainly is not a setting that we have in our schools. Unless they are attending some lecture somewhere, but it's not a setting for our younger audiences. For more mature, those who are taking responsibility for their learning. All right. Well, I threw this one in because I thought that this was interesting. I don't know if anyone has ever seen this picture before. Have you ever seen this before?
No.
No. It came from a news item. And I found it very interesting. As you can see, I think it says channel 8 here and had the time. But it was about the whole need for, the whole thing about obesity in the United States. And these are exercise balls. So what they wanted to do was to from a very early age, introduce to students how there's a need to exercise and to keep fit. So they bring in these balls, they replace chairs, and they had to balance themselves. I've never been on one of these balls, so I don't even know how it works. So those who know, can help me out here. But it was just interesting to see how they actually did it. They use these exercise balls in the classroom to help to increase posture and for the students to become fit. So I found that one interesting. I'm not quite sure what state, but I can find out. But it was all a part of the sweep across the nation to get America fit. Right, so I threw that one in. All right, now what I want us to do is to, you all already had identified some of the pros and the cons. So I want us to just quickly see now in what way in which we have really narrowed it down. Then that should carry us close to our break time. When we come back in, we should be heading straight into our next setting. But let me just bring up some, see if I can find it. What am I looking for again? Here we go. Yes, this is it. All right, so here we go. Somewhere. Share screen. And I'm doing which one? Yes, here we go. So here's this one. It says, oh, I need to big it up a little bit more so that I can make sure everyone sees. Traditional classroom setting. We had already identified the pros and the cons for this one. So it says students focus is teacher, not the surrounding distractors. This is what they say. I'm not quite sure about that one. Teacher is able to guide the instruction. So this is where the teacher is located. See my cursor. That's where the teacher is located. Is there everybody else? It says it's designed for lecture-based instruction, most definitely. It's an efficient setup, and I guess efficiency in terms of there are many students who are in that classroom. And then it says prevent cheating on exams. I don't know if Samuel wants to take on that one. It says prevent cheating on exams. We know that our students sometimes can be a little bit clever in the way in which they do things. But the drawbacks on this one, it says it's considered by many to be the least favorable way to facilitate learning. Least favorable. What do you think about that? Agree, disagree?
Agree to a certain extent because of the number of rows that are present. The students towards the back will be lost, while the students towards the front will get all the information.
Right, right. Certainly doesn't provide for equity in the classroom at all. I found number two strange. Make students feel like they're in a class.
Wow.
We would hope that they know that they're in a class. But for whatever reason, they thought that they've done some, they did their questionnaires, they asked questions, and students didn't like it because, well, it was too much like a classroom. Well, hello, yes, it is a classroom, but anyway, that one is debatable. It says there's no area for class. Oh, yes, sorry, Samuel, go ahead. Or is it
Yes. So it is not a good thing for students to feel they are in a class.
Right. It begs the question. It begs the question.
Wow.
Right. It begs the question.
Because I normally tell my students that, okay, you are not in your bedroom, so sit properly. So it's like, so it's a bad thing for students to feel they are in a class. So like they should be like in a bedroom setting or house setting.
Samuel, I'm with you. I'm of the same opinion. So is it saying that it's a bad thing for students to feel that they're in a class? And you know your learners. How do you think they feel about their classrooms right now? Being in the class. I'm not talking about even interacting with your content, but what's the general feeling that you get? And this time now I'm really, this question will be more like for Tracy, Linton, and Kamisha and Samuel. What do you sense do you get from your students when they come into your class? Are they looking forward to coming into the class? Do they ask, can we go outdoors? I'm not talking about what they feel about the subject now. I'm talking about the classroom. How do they feel? What's some of the feedback you're getting?
Well, a lot of times they want to go outdoors, but the problem with being outdoors is because of where we are located, they're easily distracted.
Right, right. And you said that it's near the in the town, the city.
Yes.
Right, right. Okay. What about for your setting, Linton? How do students feel coming into the classroom?
Okay, well, basically, like when I teach agriculture,
Okay.
so we have, all right, so we have like sometimes like the classroom setting that sometimes when you're doing our theory, our setup would be that the students would be just as it is, but because we normally have in one class, I have like 32 students in a class.
Okay.
So a setup like this is just something like, but the teacher is in the middle.
Ah.
So my desk is in the middle, yes.
Right.
Now, when we go out on the field, all the students, they go, they change, and they meet me on the farm. So when we meet on the farm, I would be in the center, and the students would circle around me.
Right. Okay.
So I will tell them what I'm expecting from them on the farm for the day.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So you end up creating that kind of circular setting as in the first one, even though they're outside standing, making the observation.
Yeah, it works. It works for me.
Right. Okay. What about the students who are behind you?
The
students who might fall behind you in that circle in web as they encircle you.
Okay, but yes, well, and you still, but the thing is, I don't keep them for too long.
Right.
When we're outside and it's turning, I'll speak to them probably for like 5 to 10 minutes. Because if I stay longer, they will get restless and eventually start knocking each other or even throwing big something after each other too.
I understand. No, this is really a typical setting for classrooms in the secondary level. And if it's saying here that there's no area for class participation, no space for group work, and the last one, no areas for collaboration or exploration, which is why I guess we carry them into the lab. This is really not a very advantageous setting. Yet it's a typical one because I guess when you look at the pros, the teacher is in charge, the teacher controls, lecture style, you get more students in there. And we want to kind of become aware that even though this might be efficient, it's not really the best learning environment. And again, why are we doing this? We want you to become advocates to say, we need classrooms where the desks and chairs can move around. We need classrooms where, you know, there can be a freedom to structure the class a little bit more if possible. Or you would have to become really very creative in your teaching approaches to ensure that you're engaging students. Really, students should not be sitting down at the secondary level just being spoken to. They need to interact. They need time to collaborate. We want to generate learners that later on they will be able to find their place in colleges, university, beyond, or even if they don't go to college and university, to be able to collaborate, to work with others. So we really need classroom settings that would foster that kind of skill from very early. So if you think about it, I know that I'm in classrooms where I have to be moving around. I can't stay at the front. I don't stay still because I want to know, get a finger, I want to know what's the temperature going on at the back, what's going on, moving around, just to try and engage students. And it's very important, especially if your desk and chairs cannot be moved. We looked at one like this before. Oops, I missed it. It says split the class in half. The students, however, are facing each other. So this side is actually facing the students on this side. Whoa. That's the interesting one. Teacher is still at the front, but they're not facing the teacher, they're facing each other. It says it's excellent for discussion and debate. Interactive classroom. Teacher is able to walk in the middle to discuss, to facilitate and to discuss. Yes, we can see that. Students face each other while discussing. Students have easy access to their desks. They're able to look at the front of the classroom if needed. And Samuel, get this last one here. Students don't feel like they're in the class.
Okay.
That's a setting, but they're facing each other. They're not facing the teacher, they're facing each other.
But
Here comes the but. Yes, big but here. Students focus on each other, not the teacher. I can see all kind of things going on in this classroom here. And then it says students able to misbehave when the teacher's back is turned. You know, I can see things being thrown across, right, Linton? We can see things being thrown across at
Yeah. Okay.
So this is not a setting that you will keep all the time, but it certainly can facilitate a class if possible. As it says, excellent for discussion and debate. So if you wanted to create two sides, you know, have a competition, that would be a good setting to try and experiment with if possible. But certainly, I wouldn't recommend it for all-time setting. What do you think, Kamisha?
Yes, that's a good point.
Jason, what do you think? Would you like to be in this classroom?
I wouldn't mind, I guess. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Would be interesting. So pick up some as we go through. If you're picking up some ideas, experiment with it. Try it for a class. You look at the subjects, the topics that you'll be looking at, and see which one of these classroom settings that can I play around with. Because the truth is, for each of them, there will be positives, there will be drawbacks. All right, this one is a U-shaped one. We had seen one like this, but this has two rows, just to accommodate the number of students. So you don't have as many rows as you would have had in the traditional classroom setting. You have two rows, but it's U-shaped or horseshoe. It's suggested, and it's just a suggestion. It's excellent for discussion. It's usually used at the college level for social science classes. Teacher becomes incorporated with the discussion. It allows for collaboration. Here we go again, Samuel. Students don't feel like they're in class. The focus is still at the front of the classroom. Then they can discuss things interactive. So remember, we're looking at the horseshoe one, or U-shaped. Difficult to enter and exit the desk. Teacher becomes one of the students, and they may lose respect for the teacher because it's as if the teacher is part of the circle. Not quite sure why they say that. Students can get off task easily. What do you think about those pros and those cons? Let's bring them up. Since you know we're looking at the horseshoe. Anything that you agree with, don't agree with?
What keep on coming to my mind is students don't feel they are in class. So it's like, the question I'm asking myself is, how should I make students to feel in my class? Right. And how will I make students not to feel they are in the class, even they are in a class?
I don't know. Ashley, would you like to on that one first?
For what am I commenting on what Samuel just said?
Yeah, in terms of, it keeps coming up in these where it says students either feel like they're in a class or they don't feel like they're in a class. What do you think of that concept?
I mean, it's kind of inconsistent because it keeps on floating from pros to cons. Right. So that can be a little bit confusing, right. But you know, it can lead to students feeling more open to reflecting what's truly inside of them if they're not feeling too stushy or, you know, afraid of some kind of consequence. So, you know, having it as a more open environment where you don't feel like you're necessarily in class can have pros and cons. With the you know, with the way that the students react to each other and the teachers.
Okay, so you're bringing it to a different level. You're really saying that if they can, it not being like in a class can be positive as well as it can be negative.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So Samuel, can you think of anything that will be positive? Because I think you feel that it's just more like a negative concept that Why should they feel like they're in a class?
Okay.
So what Ashley is saying, that it could be a plus. Maybe they feel more relaxed, more confident, more
receptive.
more receptive, right? They're more comfortable, not in their bedroom, but certainly just maybe a little bit more relaxed. Because think about it, school does provide its own pressures, you know, and maybe for some, the pressure of excelling or always being on top can be overwhelming. And so students might, you know, come in feeling this not claustrophobic, not that's not the word I'm looking for, but just feeling overwhelmed that chemistry, you know, they're uptight and they're tense and they might not relax. So maybe that's the real issue that you're speaking to, Samuel.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you.
All right. Now, okay, I think that I'll stop with that because I think you've got the picture that I want to demonstrate to you there. I also sent another. This picture kind of illustrates how your setting can be. So here's where I want your voice, your advocate voices to come in. Because the truth is that these settings are not necessarily what we have in our classes. As we have gone through the different settings, we realize that there's need for change. At the school that I teach, the labs have been modified to this kind of round table setting where the labs have, there are probably 6 or 7 of these in a lab with around 8 students around it, or 6 to 8 students around it. So this allows for, I'm talking about this round table one here where you have 3 sets of round tables. That is a classroom setting that is nice for group work. But as you can see, we're not advocating one over the other. It kind of depends on what it is that you want to achieve, which makes sense. So columns and rows, that's what we have every day. Every day, columns and rows. Columns of, is that Ava?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome.
So I'm late. Sorry about that.
I understand. No problem. So columns and rows is what we're used to. But even as Kamisha said, there's sometimes can we go outside? You know, sometimes we can change up our classroom. Experiment a little. So that's a message I want. Experiment a little. You see what works, what doesn't work. You see the circumstances under which they can work, and just see if you can experiment, if possible, because I know that it's not all classrooms probably have, you know, desks and chairs that can move around. But let's see, how can we really change our classroom environment that would be conducive to get students to participate so that we can interact with them more as the teacher. But let's be a little bit creative even as we go through this information, because to be honest, we can probably get a little bit more out of our students if we kind of stepped away from the rows and columns every now and then, if possible. And again, be a voice to advocate for some kind of change, even if the school is planning, you know, to change up the furniture or to revise, to fix up the labs. You know, you can say, I would like an input. You would like to make a suggestion. More than likely, they'll come to you anyway, because as a science teachers, you're the ones who will be using the labs and things. So this is just to sensitize you as to how classrooms can be arranged and organized, and what they enhance, how they enhance the learning process. Any questions so far, or comments?
No.
Do you think you have a voice? Do you think that you could really?
No. No. Because I think what came to my mind is sometimes they believe the architect drawing the school drawing, they know, because that's their job. So they build the building, and when it's ready, that's when we can go in. So most of the times, like, we're not really involved in the structure
Right.
of the school until it's done, then it should not be handed over to us. But for us to be involved in the structure, like the drawing, wow,
Yeah.
no. Because they believe the architect, the engineers will do all that, and when it's done, they will hand over the key to us.
I see. I see. And that happens. But if there is a renovation, I would like to encourage wherever, whichever school you find yourself, if you're somehow able to be at the point of, the origin, when they're beginning something, or if they're going to be making some adjustments, just ask, can I give an input? If you know that they're going to revamp the lab, they're going to put in new stuff, ask your HOD, or if you're the HOD, to go straight to the principal and say that I would like to make some recommendations. They might or might not take it, but even if they don't, you have a little bit more insight. See how you can, being on the ground, see how you can make some modifications in your own classrooms, if possible, just to generate some interest and to positively impact, the learning environment. All right, well, we're going to take a break now, and then when we return, we're going to the second half of what it is that we have to do regarding gender bias in the classroom. So see you in 10 minutes time.
Okay.
I've got cheese and crackers here if anybody's interested. And I want to open them now because I tried to open them right and it makes so much damn noise.
Oh, really?
Okay. See if you can get that. I'll look fine. It's plastic on the inside. It was just for me. I take my key to it.
You gotta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see if maybe a tab or something.
Mine's in tabs. I got my key to it in a minute. Yes, that's
You want to open the thing?
yeah. I'll just give it here. I'm gonna go inside for some fresh air. I want to this one.
Oh, I was gonna ask that too. I don't want to eat in here. I don't want to eat in here. Thanks.
I just want some cheese and crackers. Try.
Shut the tape out. It's up to you.
No, I went to get something to eat. I didn't have anything hot, so I was like, trying to something. Thanks.
He was just using her. And oh, by the way, he's still saying his X.
It's cheesy. It's very good.
Tasty, thanks.
Another piece?
Nah, thanks.
Ooh, well, emails have come through. Lots and lots and lots of emails. Two minutes.
Talking about the physical setting. When my nephew was 4 years old, I took him to my school. And the serious, he said, Auntie Tracy, your school's really dirty. Don't they paint it? And that's for a 4-year-old. They're so, they've got this old school thing. They won't paint it. It's disgusting.
Did you know that?
The whole school. It won't be
It is
painted.
kind of run down, yeah.
It's never been painted. It's walls covered.
Yeah, it's just concrete.
Yeah, concrete. The teachers that come, we have a lot of foreign teachers, and they say when they first got there, they're like, oh my God.
It looks like a prison.
Power wash every now and then, but it looks like a prison.
Or Academy is kind of painted, but some of the walls are kind of unusual.
In the last 2 years, they've gotten really dirty as well. I'm sorry, Ward Academy's gotten pretty dirty in the last couple of years. Might not be good. We're trying to catch up with EHS. And the problem is, a lot of those foreigners that have to pack up their kids and left to and over donations.
Yeah.
In the last school year, we had a parent just decide that they wanted to donate $50,000 for any student who wanted in science labs. Like, really?
So did you have their what names?
Nothing anonymous. That was like the biggest part is that couldn't say who it is. I don't know who it was. And they used it to start a robotics club, and I think these people are going to get like 50,000, so the robotics club continues.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, the robotics. I think I wanted to try to get something to do that at Ortho Academy. But yeah, no resources, but that's cool.
You
I
speak,
used to love-
you speak to Thorpe about that. I think he'd into that. You ever do a Mark Thorpe over there?
What's this?
Mark Thorpe, he'd be into something like
Oh,
that.
Thorn?
Thorpe,
I don't know.
science.
This is when I was in high school, so I'm not really interested in implementing it at school now.
No.
But I can remember looking back and I think some teacher did it for a few trimesters, but I don't know. Because we had to bring our own materials. So that became a little bit taxing on the teacher because everybody had different stuff. It was no structure. Extra.
Anybody want to just before I put it away? I have to put these away because otherwise I'll sit here and eat it. You know, like I'm going to. Sure.
What is that cheese?
I get some cheese and I put it all the way in about 2 seconds.
I did that last night and I made myself so sick.
What did you do?
I just sat there eating even though I'm like, I'm not hungry, I'm full.
Oh,
I'm not feeling well now.
was it delicious?
But it's 3 o'clock in the morning and my kids won't go to sleep and I'm trying to substitute food for sleep.
Oh, and I'm drawing 3 wickets. It felt so much better when I went to bed.
Oh, I wish I could drink.
Oh, I had so much doing that paper. I was like, well, maybe this will help the juices flow. But I typed a lot better. Some way of proving this morning. There was a couple of words in between places that just did. Obviously deleted stuff and like not words. Step well, too.
I don't have any papers. Actually, that's not true.
I was gonna say, have you done the movie one?
Started.
See you next week. No, the week after.
Week after.
Okay. We have some
I've watched the
time.
movie 3 times.
We have some time. I need to do better on this assignment.
Why you got nailed?
You're right.
Shut up.
No, I didn't. I got a B.
Oh, okay. In that case, I will continue speaking to you.
I got a B.
You know what, at the end of the day, when you go for your full job, you have a teaching license and say, what did you get? Your first course. Yeah, at the end of your course. You don't care if you have any of them.
Not really.
Did you pass?
Yeah.
You're not gonna care, really. It's like your GCSE results. Like the world of we doing and nobody cares about GCSE anymore. You're like, I spent 2 years working my butt off for those.
All right, are we all back? Wonderful.
Aye, aye, Captain.
I mean,
All right, so can you see what's on the screen? You had received this before, a case study.
Yes.
You get a chance to read through it?
No.
No. Did anyone get a chance to read it? Who read it?
I just read it.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Does everyone have it in front of them other than on the screen?
No.
Yes, I think I have a copy of that.
All right, all right, all right. So just quickly, this setting is in a chemistry lab. There's a young lady, her name is Marie. She's in a group. She's from Haiti and she's studying, I think, in the United States.
Yes.
Right, all right. There's a young man in her lab group. It says unspoken leader, the unspoken leader. They're deciding on what to do regarding a titration. Marie is wondering why it is that, you know, they're not getting on with the job. They're behind the other groups. And she makes a comment, well, when I was doing the reading, there was something that said, oh, you should add a titrant slowly. This young man, Joe, the self-appointed leader, or an unspoken leader, was kind of doubtful if she was correct, called over the teaching assistant, and then he proceeds to say, we read in the book that we are to do the very same thing that Marie said. The TA, teaching assistant, congratulated Joe in his observation, memory of what was to be done, turned to the group, this is a TA now, and just let them know that they need to make sure they read the lab manual and pay attention and to know what to do ahead of the class. And he kind of, you know, made it seem as if that Joe was the one who came up with the idea. At the end of it all, of course, Marie, the young lady, was quite upset because Joe stole her thunder, took the merit for it all, and he didn't seem to think that there was anything wrong with what he did. So that essentially is how the story went. Now the question is, in doing our analysis, we're trying to analyze the story or the scenario, the case. What are some of the things that are coming to your mind as you look at the case? Ava finds this one amusing. Why do you think that sorry, go ahead.
They have a nice sounding learning environment, but there seems to be some issues with the student-to-student interaction.
Okay. And you say that because, give me some of the evidence. Whenever we're analyzing a case, we make the statement, or we need to also support the statement. So why do you say that?
Well, it says this modern chemistry lab with its new equipment, white walls and ceiling, and modern lighting systems was fancy enough.
Right. To die for.
Yeah, nothing like my labs when I was learning.
Quite understand.
But this student who feels that he needs to take charge, and he seems to sort of degrade the other students in his own mind without giving them an opportunity to take over and see what they can actually do.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Anybody else? What are your observations? What do you, just some of the dynamics you see occurring here?
Yes.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead. What I observe is that the unspoken leader seemed to be just the one who took the credit for the rest of the group. Based on what I got, he didn't read before class, he doesn't know anything, yet when someone in the group gives an opinion or makes a point, he takes the credit for it. I find his group members were very nice because if it were me to not pass so nicely.
Right. Is there any evidence that the group members might not be so, or you say they're nice, but is there any evidence from the case that suggests that the group members aren't so happy with it?
Yes, they said that they look at each other uncomfortable.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
But it seems like everybody was afraid to speak up concerning the issue. Nobody wants to go against the so-called leader.
Right, right. Oh, some obvious questions. Why did the TA automatically give Joe the credit?
That's what I was gonna kind of bring up something related to that, where it seems like it could be related to gender, because in the last paragraph, it says Marie was furious, and this was just another example of the old boys network, she thought.
Right.
Like, so the
and also, like, what he said was right about what they ought to do about the lab. So the TA was like, oh, you knew exactly what to do. You are like an asset for the group, because what he said was right thing for them to do. So like the TA was wondering that the group leader knew what to do. Why are you guys still behind?
Right.
Not knowing that what the group leader said was from one of the member.
Right. And remember, it does say, what did it say? What kind of leader?
Unspoken.
On what?
It's unspoken, or they use a particular phrase to describe.
Unspoken leader, right.
Yes, unspoken.
Leader, right, of her lab group was concerned. He was not sure how they would be able to carry out the titration successfully. I just know how we're going to do this. Joe didn't like to me that he didn't have the answer, but this time he was stumped. Okay, fine. All right, but it still begs the question, why did the TA, well, you spoke to it, Samuel, that the fact that he came up with the right answer, he just assumed that it was Joe but Joe said, we read.
He said we.
Right. He said, we read in the manual, and we saw that, and we. So in a way, even though he didn't say I, he did say we. So it really does make the question, why did the TA give individual credits to Joe and say, you're an asset to your group, when Joe really did say, boy, we read in this. Why do you think Joe really said we? Anyway, just in case it was wrong, right?
Yes, then it wouldn't have been all on him. The group would have shared in that one.
Right. Are you still seeing the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
I'm getting a message on my end, so I wasn't too sure. All right. Okay. So it does suggest that the TA is identifying Joe, and as Jason picked up, that Marie probably is noting that something is going on, that maybe the TA always seems to be, we don't know without that evidence, but there must be something going on to suggest that Joe, as a male, might really be having some kind of being shown favoritism by the TA, who it's also male. What is his name again?
Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
Right. Okay.
I think clapping him on the shoulder shows an old boys club too.
All right, but that's interesting. Let's look at it another way. What do you think would have happened if it was Marie who had said that, what do you think his response would be? We're kind of stepping out on a limb here. But what do you think? Do you think he would do the same thing, clap her on her shoulder?
No.
Why not?
No, he won't.
Why? Yes, go ahead.
Well, generally, men in position generally, I figure, try to avoid touching women because of sexual harassment and all those things.
Right.
So he may have complimented her, but he will not have touched her in any way.
Right, right. In fact, whether it be Marie, as you rightly said, or any other female student, because how would a female student see such an action or view such an action? We understand the teacher's perspective that they would not go there because of the potential follow, but how do you think it would play out in the mind of the female student?
That he may be attracted to her or something.
Anybody else?
Right.
I think the female should answer that.
Oh, I don't know. Well, she will be uncomfortable with it.
Right. It could go either way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. That is true. Do you think Marie should go to Joe any time at all and say, "Hey, you stole my idea"?
No. I think next time Mary should should I say outspoken by herself too? So the TA can know that, oh, so you knew exactly what was going on or what to do in the group. But if she always keep to herself, the TA may think maybe she doesn't know what she knew. So she has to be outspoken herself to make sure that the TA have a different impression about her, that she knew what's happening in the group, not just standing there. What you say is like nobody's hearing you.
Right. Because, in fact, if you notice, Joe's own thoughts about her, when she said what she read, what was Joe thinking? There's a section there that's telling.
He looked at her with doubt.
And
he looked at her with doubt.
And he was wondering whether or not
Could
she was
be
right.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't rely on her words alone. She had many ideas, but they weren't always good ones. She had many ideas, but they weren't always good ones. All right. Well, even as we went through this case, it was just really to try and see how, this issue of gender bias could really play out in our classrooms. Because it's interesting. We might not pay much attention to it, but in fact, it might be happening right under our nose, but we're not paying it any mind because it's not coming from us. So I found this cartoon clip that says, do you think we need women partners? And it says, maybe they can clean the glass ceiling. Oh boy. So, we're talking about breaking the glass ceiling and we're talking about cleaning it. But this issue of gender, I was looking up some definitions, and these were some definitions that I came across. Trying to define, and that was where I got it from. What is this thing called gender versus sex? It says sex refers to the biological and physiological characteristics that define men and women. So that's more of a biological foundation. While gender, as we have heard even before this class, is more behaviors. So that's really formed through interactions with society. And it says it refers to socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. Gender, another source says it's the behavioral, cultural, or psychological traits typically associated with one sex, whether it be male or female. So it's really talking about social and cultural factors that can help to form, you know, what men and women will do. Gender bias then is an unfair treatment to either men or women as a result of those same differences. So it says unfair difference in the treatment of men or women because of their sex. Now, I came across some videos which I thought were very interesting, and one of them I'm very guilty of. So I'm going to share that video with you now. Did you go through it? Did anybody get a chance to go through the video?
No.
No? All right, let me see if I can find the one that I want.
He sent it either yesterday or sometimes we.
2 days ago. Did Dr. Ahad ever get back to you?
Try it's going to search for it.
Okay. I'm interested to know what she was. I'm interested to know when she's going to about the process.
Well, I don't know why this part that we're just going to meet one on one.
All right, let's tell me if you can hear and see. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so here we go.
Okay, turn it around.
Are you playing it?
It's just music, just music. No talking.
When are we supposed to be seeing something? Because all we see is the hand. Yeah, no talking, but it's moving on video.
All right, all you're seeing is the hand.
It's not moving or anything. It says causes of gender.
Okay. No, that's not supposed to be happening. Thanks for letting me know.
Okay.
Is it the same in the other sites? St. Lucia?
Yes, it is. We're not seeing.
All right, good. Let me see what's going on here now. Let's see. Let's do it from the top then. Nope. That's not what I want to do. All right, I'm getting there. No, that's not. All right. Are you seeing this image?
Yes.
All right. This one is a different one. I'm just trying something else. You know what? I think I'm going to exit full screen. All right. I can have a better. This one has some sound. So let me know if you're hearing it as well. Let me turn that off. Maximize as much. So here we go. Did you see that movement? Are you seeing the
Yes.
Yes.
All right then. There's no sound at the moment.
No sound.
Right. That's okay. That's okay. That's the video. They'll just have the sound at the beginning.
Okay.
Who's Rachel? Okay. What do you think about that?
Interesting.
Excuse me, is it from a male teacher or a female teacher?
Well, Sander, I think it's both.
Okay.
Both. Oh no, this is not the one. I think it's from both, actually.
Is that based on research in the US?
Yes, in the US. You know how it is. Usually the ones that are putting out this stuff. But what do you think about it? Is there anything, any, especially for the active teachers? Was there any hint of truth for it for you or from your own experiences?
Well, for me, no. My female students tend to be the brighter ones. So most times when I ask a question, they're the first to put up their hands and the first to answer.
What's a ratio?
Sorry?
What's a ratio like for boys and girls?
Oh, there are a lot more boys than girls in my classes.
Okay.
Every one girl, there are like 3 boys, 2 to 3 boys.
Okay. What about you, Samuel?
Okay, let me. No, to me, like, okay, I think in my fourth form, okay, sometimes I have like 10 to 1.
Right.
10 girls to 1 boy.
Okay.
And to me, I tend to call those who are not answering question in the class. So all this male, female, no, it's like if you answering question every time, I'll tend to call you less.
Okay.
To focus more on those who are not really involved in what is going on,
right.
Male or female.
Right.
And most of the time, all I do is when I call a male student, I'll call a female student. So I say, you represent the male student to do this question on the board, and you represent the female student to come and answer this question on the board.
Okay.
That's what I do in my class.
Right. Okay, anybody else? Is there anything in there that you could identify with according to them? I mean, it's not gospel. It's just some findings they discovered. What do you think, Ashley?
What do I think about what?
Is there any truth, do you think, to what we just saw in terms of how teachers might respond to boys and girls in a classroom setting?
Yeah, I understand like the whole bias and but it's hard to say what I think when it's so subjective. Like Samuel said, I remember having teachers that would ignore me because I knew the answers, so they try and like pull from other people to keep them engaged.
Right.
And then if nobody got it right, then they, depend on, the 10% that actually understands what's going on to explain it to the rest of the class.
Right. So it really didn't matter if it was male or female.
It didn't really matter too much. It was because, we had students from all around the world
times, and yeah, it's hard to say what I think about what we just viewed, because I mean it doesn't really seem to be accurate. It's just subjective to what some people in the States observed about some people.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? We don't really know how many people were studied and for how long, and it's just hearsay, I guess.
Right. I understand. But Vanessa, what about you? What was your experience like in your own classes coming up? Anything that
I went to all girls' schools for the most part, so it's not particularly relevant. But when I did go to co-ed at sixth form, I was the only girl in any of my classes because I was doing all sciences, and girls don't do sciences at my schools. And my biggest class was 6 students, so there was never any opportunity to be left out.
I see. Point. What about Jason? Being the only male in that class there right now with 3 other females just now. Have you experienced any gender bias for these past 5 weeks? Never mind, don't answer that question. But what's your experience been like? You know, if you don't tell me you went to all boys school now, then so much for the question.
No.
Oh, okay, all right. Any hints of it as a student growing up?
No, I don't think so. I would have thought that the results from their study would have been the opposite. I would have thought that girls would have been favored more, because I think that generally people think that they do better in school and stuff like that. So that's what I would have thought, but not necessarily based on my own experience. I don't feel like I really experienced that.
Right.
I feel like my experiences growing up, people were fairly balanced in who they chose to answer questions and things like that.
Well, I have another question, and this one is for Linton. And Linton will probably figure out why I'm asking. Linton,
Okay.
why do you think that this video is portraying that boys will be known, their names will be known, they'll be called upon? Why do you think there's that focus upon the boys? Why do you think there's
Okay. Well, I could take it from me, especially like when I was at school, I was very troublesome. And in order to get my attention, to make sure that I do not, like if I could get restless quickly as well, so the teacher would call on me for sure. And we have a boys' school, all boys' school. And it's like when I was in grade, like getting ready for a common entrance, my brother was my teacher, my class teacher. And everything that he would want, he would ask me any question. First of all, he would make sure that I know the answer to the question as well. Yeah.
Okay, you went to all boys school, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Were you ever in a co-ed setting?
Well, at secondary school, yeah.
So what was that like?
But I'm talking about primary school.
Right.
At primary school, it was an all boys school.
Right, but what was it like in the co-ed setting?
Well, I didn't have much of a problem with that, but I was, like I said, I was very troublesome, so the teacher would try to get my attention.
Right. Sorry, Linton, I don't know why I decided I give you that question, but that's really is a point, that their research shows that boys are the ones who, sorry, Jason and Samuel, no indictment on you guys, but it does suggest that boys tend to be called upon just to get them to participate. Notice that Kamisha said that her girls are usually the bright ones, they're attentive, they're listening, they're paying attention. There are many missing factors from the video, as Jason and Ashley pointed out. We don't know how many students were involved in this research or observation. We don't know what age group. We don't know how wide the scope or on what they made, basis they made their observation, hence their conclusions. However, there is research evidence that boys do tend to stay off track, especially in the early formative years. And as a result, teachers will tend to focus on them a little bit more to keep them out of trouble if they're the expression boys will be boys, or as Marie said, old boys club, here they go again, men ganging up, etc. It's not necessarily something that is conclusive, but there is research evidence to suggest that boys will tend to be a little bit more disruptive, to lose attention in the early teen years, in the early years, the formative years into their early teens. And I think that is what they're basing that particular video on. So as a result, they didn't say why, but as a result, I'm linking it, that as a result of that, teachers will know Alfonso first, because Alfonso is always getting up and walking around because he can't sit still. Not that girls don't do that, but the girls, their behavior pattern usually a little bit more dormant, they're more quiet. Again, looking at what? Socialization. We're talking about how the culture and their upbringing is impacting their behaviors, and the expectations from them in their gender role is coming out, and hence it looks as if there's a bias towards boys in knowing their names first, in calling on them, asking them to do things, because there was this drive to try and get the boys to become involved as they progress. There is research that girls tend to bloom earlier than boys, that they mature quicker. You've heard of that research statement before, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that kind of, I think, research that is feeding into this video. So if we make the connection that if boys are usually not quite attentive as early as the girls, if they're not paying attention, if they're more disruptive, if they find other things to do, they're not quite settled as the girls, it's quite easy then to think that there's a gender bias going on in the classroom setting as teachers try to make an attempt to reach the boys, to get them involved, to get them to perform as well as girls. What do you think about that?
That makes sense.
In fact, in here in Jamaica, there have been many different kinds of initiatives to just try and get boys to excel, because even as Kamisha said, the girls are doing really well. They're the ones that are bright, they're participating, they're working well. But here in Jamaica, there are different initiatives. Do you see any such initiatives in your own countries where the government or schools are trying to get boys to perform better?
Yeah, they have some kind of technical school where students who get segregated from the system for being troublesome, they've had more than one run-in with being, what do you call it when you're released from school for? Oh, suspension, yeah. When you're suspended, like these kids continuously are on detention or suspension. So they have these other options, and one of the options is to complete this tech school where they learn different hands-on skills, but also get their GED at the same time. So they're getting like life skills, like learning how to fix simple engines or wiring things, some technical tech trade skills.
Right.
So that's one thing that they've produced for some of the kids who can't seem to stay in the school system.
Right.
What is that place? What's it called?
I can't remember what it's called. Michael Stowe is the one who heads it up.
Anybody else have any similar programs in your country that you're aware of?
Well, in Dominica, they're just starting to introduce the TVEC program, where students, especially those who are not academically inclined, will learn more technical stuff like mechanics and
Woodwork. Electricity.
management, electricity, hairdressing, those type of things.
Right.
But it has not yet taken off. They are just implementing it, and they're trying to fit it into the curriculum.
Okay.
Trying is the operative word.
And is meant for both sex, both male and female.
Male and female.
I kind of noticed that. I noticed the choice of words. That. But what about programs that are targeting boys? Any such that you are aware of?
No,
Okay.
no.
What about you, Eva and Linton? Are you aware of any such programs?
Um, no, I'm not aware of any. And it's just to follow up what was it Tamika? Sorry, from Dominica.
Kamisha,
Tamisha, sorry. I should know that by
yeah.
now.
It happened.
I'm just tired, sorry. Um, it's amazing because I'm thinking about even at our school, at my school, sorry, where it's predominantly boys, they do gravitate towards the technical department, agriculture, TD, woodwork, etc. But sometimes to me, I sit back and wonder, does it make sense? Because as Samisha said, we're going to have these boys going to do machinery, work on the camp, become mechanics, wire, learn electrician, electrical installation, etc. But how is it we think that you don't need a brain to do these kind of things? How come you think that the children are not bright enough?
Correct.
Because are you going to allow somebody who you think is not academically inclined to use your words to work on your car? Because your life will be in danger.
That
How do you allow
that
this
is
person
true.
to wire your homes and whatever else? And when you go put on your lighter or something, the house is on fire. So sometimes you do need a brain for these technical subjects. You do need a brain, and
That
more
is
so
true.
than the manual things. So sometimes I wonder if we know what we're doing in the educational system. And I sometimes when I reflect, I say we fail in the children big time. I mean, not us as teachers, but I mean sometimes we follow things that and we don't question it. How is it we want somebody who don't know anything, is not so smart, to do all these things that you're supposed to have a brain to do?
That
I
is
don't know.
true.
Okay, we hear the passion there. But the question for me is, well, any comments from anybody before I put in my 2 bits on what Ava just said?
Yes.
Yes, Samuel.
I think to me, what I'm getting from the males that want to do the TVEC is because the way the males are designed, they want something handy. So it's not as if they don't have brain up there, but they like to use hand. So that means they tend to use their mind, their brain in whatever they can be physically involved with. And in sitting down in classroom where they have to listen and listen, sometimes they may not be able to stand that. But when they are in a practical setting, they may tend to be handy in whatever they do.
Right. Because it's the question is the assumption being made that if you are not able to do agricultural science, biology, chemistry, and you opt to do hairdressing, culinary arts, mechanics, electrical engineering, I'm not quite sure if the assumption is that you don't have the brains. That can't be the assumption. It's more the aptitude for something. It's more the inclination, or as Samuel says, what it is that they are kind of not really wired to do, but more what it is that they're more inclined or do better at. So I'm not quite sure if it is good to suggest that they don't have the brains. If they're failing at the main sciences, if someone is failing at art, if someone is failing at the business subjects, if they're failing in an area, then if there are many things that they need to examine to determine what is causing a failure. Having done that, and there is a consensus between teacher, student, parents, that it doesn't seem as if that's what they are inclined to do or to do well at, and they choose another option. It can't be that we're saying they don't have any. But I get the point that you're making, Ava, because some persons have that kind of thinking about it, but it's really erroneous. You can have the most brilliant, we need mechanic, but he really couldn't really, as Samuel said, sit down, have the discipline to learn a foreign language or to do chemistry with the equations and stuff. But certainly he must be equally applying his neurons, for want of a better expression, to be able to wire a car. So you're right, Ava. Some persons have this wrong notion, thinking, oh, them can't do that, so let them do that. As if that option doesn't equally require and demand rigorous observation, attention to detail, following instructions, making an analysis. It's the same thing, just that they're not inclined to do it in a for biology or for chemistry, but they certainly have to do it in the other areas.
Interestingly, though, even the students have that notion that the students who do woodwork or PE or something like that, that they're not the bright ones. They're the dumber ones. They couldn't do the bio and the chem and the physics, so they had to, settle for the woodwork and those things. And even their parents as well have that notion. So some students, they would want to do the woodwork, they would want to do the electricity, that's their interest, that's their passion. And when they choose their subjects, they go home with the forms. The parents will say, no, you're not doing that. You do biology, chemistry, and physics, and then they come to the class and you just kind of get them to do anything for you because they're not interested.
Right. It is, we need to re-socialize the place value for the technical vocational subjects. In fact, here in Jamaica, we have, I forget what it's called, VTDI, this institute, Vocational Technical Development Institute. And in collaboration with some other organizations, they provide certifications in tech voc subjects. And they're promoting it a lot because they recognize that there are a group of students, as you said, Kamisha, they are not doing well in the mainline sciences. And here in Jamaica, we're trying to sensitize persons to the importance, the equal value on tech voc. And that as they get their certification, they work in collaboration with private sectors to put them in jobs almost immediately. They act as interns, then they prove themselves, they go on to the next level, and they keep going. So there is a thrust here in Jamaica to try and promote the need for students not to see tech voc as something that is less than, or something for persons who have no brains, for want of a better expression, but that it's something that is important, that there is a niche for them and there is a need for persons to be able to handle those subjects. But I take your point though, Ava, that we should not really think, okay, you can't just go and wash a car, so to speak. It's we are doing our students an injustice when we do that. But anyway, we digress a little. But it does speak to the whole thing though about what we think boys should be doing and what we think girls should be doing. Interesting enough, Vanessa said that when she was in school, she was the only girl because girls didn't do sciences. Where did that kind of orientation come from, Vanessa? How did that philosophy get into the school system?
When we went from fifth form to sixth form, and you had to choose your subjects, and if a girl said that she wanted to do one of the sciences, you kind of got taken aside for an extra chat about, did you really want to do this?
Interesting.
Whereas they were more, you should be doing English or you should be doing drama.
Wow.
But the guys were also more encouraged to do motor mechanics and things like that. And I don't think they like teaching science generally. So I was a class of one in one of my science classes. I was the only student because they talked everybody else out of doing it.
Oh, wow. And look at that, you ended up in an area that's not really a common field, genetics, right?
Yes.
Right. Wow. Interesting. But this thing about gender bias, we have to examine ourselves. And I appreciate what persons have said that as far as they're aware, it's not something that you're promoting in your own classes. But do you think gender bias somehow goes beyond the classroom? Let's say, for example, so you're going to apply for a job, Vanessa, and Jason is applying for the same job. They're both geneticists for want of and what is it that Jason is biochemistry. So let's say you're both applying for a job at some company as the geneticist. You have equal qualifications, experience basically the same, a number of years under your belt. You have, you know, neck and neck in that department, equal standing. Who do you think will get the job?
Definitely Jason.
Oh no.
I've been told by an employer that the reason that I didn't get the job was that I was female and of reproductive age. And they were not prepared to deal with somebody who might be going on maternity leave or who would put their family first.
Yeah, I've heard that.
What?
I've been told by employment agencies not to wear my wedding ring when I go for interviews because I won't get the job.
Okay.
I'm not surprised about that.
All right. That is interesting.
And also, like, I was told that if married, you have children, like, oh God, I'm sorry. But if you're a young lady, not married, wow, good assets.
Boy, that sounds frightening. Ava, what do you think about that now? Because we know how strong you felt already about still how we, you know, label students. What do you think about that, Ava?
Sure.
That's Samuel. I would like Samuel to repeat what he said.
I said outside there, the companies, like, if you are a young lady, you're not married, they tend to like employ you compared to, oh, you married lady, you married, you have children, that they might want to say, okay, I'm sorry.
Why is that? Why is that the case? Because I fall in that category, so why is that the case?
Wow.
Just in case I'm unemployed.
I hate to say this, but they do have a point, because if my kids are sick, I'm the one who takes off work.
Right.
If my kid's school is closed down for the day for whatever reason, I'm the one who has to take off. It's never my husband.
But that's just a personal choice. That's just a personal how the dynamics of your home might be. But for mine, sometimes when my daughter is sick, I know she might need 2 or 3 days. I will take one day. My husband will take one day. So just how you work your home it depends. You know, so just should not be a requirement, because yes, female take up most of the role in the nurturing and caring, but it's just how your home works is different from mine. He'll take a day, I'll take a day, so we will not both miss a day or whatever. But it's just how things work. But I don't see that way at all. I think it's bias, and we should stand against that. It's not right.
I'm not saying I agree with it. It's just that's the way that things work out. That my employers have always been much better about me taking time off because my kids are sick. His employer will not give him time off.
Okay, yes, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just the dynamics of how things are.
Which goes back.
Okay.
Ava's in shock. It goes back to what we had looked at the beginning about gender and how society expects and the male to respond and what expectation of the female. Because I've worked at a place where a young man, he was really the person who looked after his son, and every time the son was sick, he would take off, and that just didn't go down too well with his boss. He was advised, let the mother go, let Vanessa go. You know, interesting, because if it kind of begs the question: if it exists in the real world, doesn't it exist then in the classroom? You know, I know that it's a microcosm. Maybe we can't extrapolate so much, but maybe it does happen somehow in the classroom. Maybe not explicitly and overtly, but maybe covertly. Maybe we need to probably look again at our actions. Are we quietly, maybe subconsciously having any kind of gender bias? I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying maybe we should probably re-examine how do we view the boys and how do we view the girls? Do we have a certain set of expectations from our girls versus the boys? Is it an equal expectation? Do we expect them equally to succeed? Do we expect them equally to handle homework? Do we expect them I mean, it's something that we have to look at for ourselves. You know, are we ourselves, you know, expressing, you know, any form of bias towards boys or girls? You know, is it that we are rooting for the girls, you know, and we're leaving the boys behind, or vice versa? We probably need to look for maybe the next couple of weeks, see, am I in some way subtly entertaining, you know, bias for either male or female in my interactions with them? But when I talked about gender bias beyond the classroom, there was an article that I came across, which I want to share. It's part of the PowerPoint presentation that I found really, really interesting. Like, how did they get this stuff? How did we get there in terms of gender bias and how persons are treated? Let's see if I can get this now. All right, here we go. So I go here. All right. It's taken from this website, Stanford University, and it says subtle gender bias and institutional biases. Just getting myself across here. All right. Moving down now. This is the part that I found. So here's what Vanessa was talking about. It says mothers are viewed as less competent than women who are not mothers. And these are based on research. So it says, in a recent experimental study, and recent in this case means 2007, here's the date. In a recent experimental study in which participants evaluated application materials for women job candidates who differed only by parental status, mothers were perceived as less competent, and received a lower starting salary than non-mothers. Men were not penalized for and sometimes benefited from being a parent. A follow-up study showed that actual employers discriminated against mothers, but not fathers. Wow. What do you think about that? I hear Jason. Jason, what you saying over there?
I didn't say anything. That was Samuel, I think.
And of course, it's hint, Jason, meaning that what do you think about that?
Jason's keeping very quiet.
I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting.
Full stop.
I mean, no, I thought it was interesting. Like, I'd be interested to read this website and look at the other things that they've done, research. But that would be like qualitative research.
If they're coming up with differences, it could be probably both qualitative and quantitative. Right.
Quantitative data? Yeah, but they actually had people analyze job applications.
What was that? Someone has something else to share?
We're just discussing whether it was actually qualitative or quantitative, if they were looking at job applications and deciding whether they would employ that person or not.
Right, so that would be the qualitative part of it.
She said qualitative.
Qualitative?
If you're looking at job display, that would be qualitative because more descriptive. But if they then did like ratios of how many to whatever, and if they interviewed the bosses, what would they do? Give them a questionnaire. That's qualitative.
Right. So it's a combination.
Right. I think it's a combination. Okay.
But my question though, why is being a parent an asset to the father, but a liability to the mother?
It demonstrates that men are responsible and aren't going to run away. They've got really
So isn't the mother also responsible, and doesn't she have roots?
We're not judged by the same standards.
No, not it's a given. It's a given. It's all. I actually heard of a story of a man who was being promoted right here in Jamaica, a nice, a well-known company, and he was advised that leading to the promotion, he get married. And just as who was saying it, Tracy and McCratcher who was saying it, that it does show a sign of responsibility. Well, or so they think.
So they think.
Or so they think. Well, but it's interesting. So
maybe it's because people are like getting married later and later, you know, and women who are educated are not getting married until later. So maybe it's kind of connected to that, you know, because like someone who is just focusing on their education may seem more competent because of that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about it.
Right.
Like,
I understand.
as opposed to getting married earlier and stuff. I don't know.
I
Right.
think it's all about the money.
Sorry?
I think it's all about money because women do take time off for maternity leave and so it's all about money.
But it says that they're less competent.
Well, that's what you say when you don't want to hire someone.
Oh.
If you've shown the
They're
bias.
viewed as less. They're going to be less dedicated because they're going to be more focused
Right, I
on their
understand that.
families. But
That's not the same as competent.
Yeah, but they have to say something if they don't hire you. They can't say we're not hiring you because you're female. Not necessarily.
that gets you sued.
Yeah.
They could say that they're not hiring you because you'll be more dedicated to your family.
No, that would also get you sued.
Yeah.
Come again? Your voice is about family?
I guess.
If they said that they weren't hiring a woman because her focus would be on her family rather than the job, she'd be more dedicated to her family, then that would get them sued as well as saying they're not hiring her because she's.
Okay.
So they have to say they're not hiring her because she's less competent.
But that could get you sued too, saying that she's less competent just because she's a mother. I don't
Yeah,
think
but
that's
They
what
don't,
they're
they're
actually
not, they're
saying.
not saying
Tagging
it
that
because
on.
you're a mother. They're just saying the other person is more competent.
All right. Look at this one. It says, I'm looking at images. So we're looking at gender bias. Research that has been done to illustrate how gender bias occurs, and this is all about sciences, all right? This section here is stereotypes and gender roles, and they have the different headings, but this one that I'm highlighting is images of scientists are persistently masculine. Now, that might be changing now because we have notable scientists who are women, but look at this. It says, decades of draw a scientist research indicate that children tend to depict scientists as men, although the number of scientists drawn as women is now increasing. Scientists continue to be depicted as Caucasian despite the prominence of Asians in science. And they have given 3 sources of research work that has brought out these conclusions. So Jason is free, and you all are, to you know, find out a little bit more. They have the journal articles where to source it. What do you think about that? That scientists tend to be depicted as masculine. Do you have anything in your curriculum that talks about scientists in like in grade 7? I think we have something like that here in Jamaica.
Yes, they have that. I think in IS they have famous scientists of the Caribbean or something like that. And the work that they did, what field they were noted for, stuff like that.
Right. But do you think that children view scientists as a male, or the science field as a male-dominated world?
I think so. I think it's been portrayed all in the news when they hear about Nobel, not Nobel orbit. What you mean? I forget the prize. And stuff is mainly male that wins these prizes and stuff. Mm-hmm. I think they need more role models. I think so. In terms of females, that is, sorry.
Right. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, like in chemistry and physics that I've been teaching, wow. The only time a female name was mentioned was the one assisting her husband.
Oh, dear.
So like, for me to stand alone as a scientist, I'm sorry, I'm not. Just the one that was assisting her husband, that's all.
Okay, I see. Interesting.
But maybe she's the one doing all the work and the husband is taking all the glory for it. You never know.
That
I
might
think
be.
before
It's possible.
there was this, so I think I'm not sure, but it was this case sometime way back, how many years ago? If you wanted to be, I'm not sure which country it was. If you wanted to be taken seriously as a writer, you had to actually send your books and stuff and have a name that seemed the male dominant, or change your name to look like a male, or sell your books under somebody else's name, and then you'll be taken seriously, like a pseudo writer, etc., something like that.
A pseudo writer. Oh yes, yes, yes. In fact, yes, some authors are really females, but they have, as you rightly said, kind of pretended that they're males so that their work can be accepted. That was years ago, but who knows if it's not still, you know, the current the current thing. But this concept of gender bias, it is something that all we want to know is to explore it in terms of, are we ourselves sources of this in our classrooms? Because we need to be careful that we do not generate it. We don't promote it. We don't feed into it, so that our students then in turn, they will do the same. I think that is the key issue.
You don't want to hear Linton's view, and that you'll have jaw-dropping moments. So,
Yeah, well, personally, I think sometimes I am actually I am biased in terms of my subject, like that I teach agriculture.
Yes.
When I grew up, it's like agriculture used to be something for males. Mostly males would be doing agriculture at secondary school, even for CXC. But now as a teacher, it's changing, and my class have more females than males.
He's annoyed, eh?
And it's very disturbing. It's disturbing to me. Yeah.
Sorry.
And I just told Eve a while ago that yesterday I was called for an activity at the Ministry of Agriculture. And when I arrived there, everybody that was sitting at the front desk were females. And then again, I came to the presentation with 2 males and 1 female, that's agriculture science students. Eventually, I had to pinpoint it out to the males and say, where are the females? Where are the males? What is happening to the males? Because every agriculture is something that men should be doing.
That's not so, eh?
But now you find that all females, and it's really troubling me in the school, where I reach a point where now, if we're doing plowing or any heavy work, I don't want any boy to help any female. Let them do their work.
My God, how do things change?
He's serious.
Yes, he's serious.
And I'm serious, I'm not agreeing to the
He's serious.
Oh, man.
Bye.
In Dominica, we have 3 agricultural teachers, and 2 of the 3 are females. And the females and everything like any man.
I know.
Well, we have two at our schools, all females, myself and another lady. And that's okay. That's fine. That's fine with me.
No, but even how to handle the practical aspect of agriculture, like you have to handle the spade to dig drains and
get the men to do it.
So you see, no, but most of you find the females, they don't do the practical aspect.
Of course, we do the practical aspect. Come on.
But as a teacher, you have to be using the spade. Look at my hand. Right? It's hard, it's tough, but the female hand is soft.
I wear gloves.
Interesting, very interesting conversation.
Very. We'd have to make a case study out of Linton.
It almost makes us wonder then, if Linton somehow have gender bias issues in its classroom?
We answered that already. That's me a resounding yes.
Like that one, a resounding yes.
Yeah.
The very end of the PowerPoint, the last one, not the last, there is a slide that says Caribbean realities. And if you click on it, it goes to a book. You know how you can preview pages of a book, even though it's on Google, but you don't get to see all of the book. But
Yeah, like a sample.
right, when you go on it, you will see excerpts from this book that breaks down how it's probably 15, is it 15? Probably 10 to 15-year-old research that was showing you the breakdown of male and female entries into certain examinations, chemistry, biology, whatever. But if you have an opportunity, you can really go through. It talks about salary differences. It talks about the same thing that Linton is saying in terms of there is obviously a change. Back in the days, you would find more men in a particular field and less women. But now that's changing. Women are now found in any profession, any field at all. They're now Linton is in pain. They're now exploiting, if I want a better word. You know, they're in many niches. And
I want to add.
Yes.
And I want to add to that, and most times when you find females doing the male's job, they are the supervisors, they are the administrators.
Yeah, but that
Counseling. But that's interesting because the truth is we don't want girls to think that certain jobs are not for them. We don't want boys to think that certain jobs are not for them. Here in Jamaica, we have some great chefs. Think about it. At school, we say the girls must do needlework, nutrition, learn to cook. They must be in the kitchen. And yet some of the world's greatest chefs are men.
Amen. That's true.
Somewhere along the line, they had to make that decision that they were going to go into a kitchen somewhere. So they're breaking the glass ceiling, not just on the female side, but also on the men's side. And it would be unfair if in our own classes that we use a language that would suggest that, you know, look here, girls, you go on and get married and have children. That we have passed that. We have passed that. The boys and girls should be equally encouraged to pursue being a nutritionist or a biologist or you know, an environmentalist, a mechanic, whatever it is in terms of vocation or profession, that they should be equally encouraged to pursue with excellence. That's a key thing. Whatever it is that they choose, to do it with excellence. So as much as it relies on us, we want to reduce the biases based on the fact that they're girls. Oh, that's how the girls are, or that's how the boys are. We want to move away from that kind of language or thinking, so it doesn't spill out into our classes, so that when this generation reach into those high places of position beyond us, after we would have left this earth, so to speak, that they don't perpetuate some of these things that we're reading about discrimination in salaries and a man will get higher paid. And no. We really want persons to be respected and to be treated with the worth that they have. So even for today's class, we are coming to the end. We had looked at
Okay. I have a question.
Yes. Sorry, Samuel.
Yeah, that came into my mind now.
Yes.
Like, as human being, is it possible for us to be bias free? That's one. Because also what came to my mind now is just thinking about it, I would prefer my wife to have a female hairdresser instead of a male hairdresser. I'm serious, because I cannot imagine my wife going to a male hairdresser. I prefer her to have a female hairdresser. and also,
Why
it's
is
like
that, Samuel?
Just men hairdresser is like, oh God. No.
I agree with you, Samuel.
Bye. Interesting.
Listen, come on, discuss. Rest of the men, please. You're in the middle right now, Jason. Literally on the screen. You're in the middle. Jason.
I was actually kind of thinking about that to a degree. Like, I wasn't thinking, I don't have a wife, so I wasn't thinking like that, but I was just thinking about males going into those kind of fields like cosmetology or, you know, doing nails or something like that. I mean,
You can't wrap your head around it.
pardon?
And you
I'm
can't
not,
wrap your head around that happening.
no, I can. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
A simple example for me, if I go to a barber shop, I wouldn't expect a female to cut my hair for me.
Very good barbers. I know here in Jamaica, that's another thing. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it has to do then with, to some extent, you know, what we expect men to do and what we expect women to do.
That's really,
That's really the bottom line.
yeah.
It has to do, the only reason why we think like that is kind of the expectations of what men would do and what women will do. If we were socialized, you know, the other way around, we would even think that it was strange or odd. But I think that the key point to take away from this is, as much as possible, to treat both your boys and girls in your classroom with equal attention, equal respect, and with equal expectations. I think that's a key thing. So when you ask, is it possible to be bias-free in terms of your classroom settings? That's what we want. We want, when you speak to a boy, yes, there might be issues that are peculiar to young men, but at the same time, when you are dealing with a classroom setting, as much as possible, one of the things that they say is that use as many examples that boys would appreciate, again, culturally, and then use as many examples that girls will appreciate. I tend to follow sports. So I will talk about, you know, our athletes, but not all girls are interested in sports. So I have to find and balance some examples that would equally, you know, appeal to the girls, so that I don't get them left behind. So I think that's the essence of the lesson, that when we are teaching, as much as possible, whatever content or topics, that we just try and be as all incorporative as possible, so we don't alienate one over the other, or we don't pay more attention to one more than the other. I think that's the essence that we want to take away from this. Right. Any other questions or comments? Samuel, you'd have to work that one out with your wife. On your own, there, bro. On your own.
No, because like in my class, I think psychologically, I tend to handle the females softer than the boys. And also what comes to my mind also psychologically, and also like when male student comes to me that they want to go and use the toilet, sometimes I ask questions. But with female students, I don't really ask too much questions. Because normally, like, say I'm not allowed to go out anyhow from the class. But when a female comes to me, oh, I want to go and use the toilet, it's like I don't ask much question compared to guys to say, hello, why do you want to go and use the toilet now? Can you wait till after the period? So I think.
So it's as subtle as it is. Know that where our eyes are, you know, we're looking at the ways in which we're doing this. But I think the key thing is for our science classroom, that whatever we're teaching, we don't generate in the minds of a girl or in the minds of a boy that they're any less than in their capacity to. be a chemist or to do something. I think that's the essence that we want, that when we address our students as much as possible, our expectations of them, that we treat them equally. That's really what we want to take away, right? Right, Mr. Linton, we're treating them equally.
I'll try.
So I would like you to over the next couple of weeks, look at how you have been. Don't try and change anything. Don't overthink. Just be a normal self, but see if you can become a little bit more aware. If there is indeed any way in which you have been, have hints of bias and how it is that you think or there's a need for you to address that. And then I would like you to somehow experiment with a classroom setting that is different from what you've always had. See how it works. You might get some resistance. You know how kids are, don't like change or whatever, but think about it, plan a lesson that you think could incorporate maybe a different setting, a different classroom setting, and experiment with it. As you go to your classes, whatever other courses that you're doing in the program here, don't just take these things. They should be practically and implemented. Don't just take a course, answer the questions for your coursework and say, yeah, that's it, I've done my part. We are hoping that at the end and during, not just at the end, during your time in this program, that you'll be able to implement something, take away something. What would you like to take away from this course? Even for today's class, is there anyone who would like to share what it is, that something that you've never thought about before and you would like to probably go further into or try out? Anybody at all? Is there something that you want to challenge yourself on? Because learning shouldn't just be about acquiring knowledge. We really want to try and implement, act on it. Anybody at all? Is there anything that you have become aware of that you would want to, probably try out? I'm challenging you to do it, but is there anything that you would think that, yeah, I'm going to do this?
I think
Yes. What I can try is, because most of my classes are in the lab, so it will be very difficult for me to change the setting of the classroom. So maybe I'll just see if I can take them to a classroom to see how we can change the setting in a classroom. So I may have to leave the lab one day and say, okay, fine, we're not going to have a class in the lab today. Let's go to an ordinary class where I can change the setting of the setting.
Right. So you would have to plan that, carefully. Think of the lesson that you'd want and what kind of setting do you think that would be conducive to that lesson, So
Yes.
you'd have to plan, in advance. But yeah, that would be good. That would be good. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else?
Yeah, thank you.
I won't feel any way if you're not going to do anything, But it's quiet. But think about it. I'm encouraging you to again, two things. Reflect. Am I in any way exhibiting any bias towards males or females in my classes? And two, experiment with some change of the physical setting of the classroom and see how that works out. All right. Read the assignments. I want to apologize to persons who I might have sent some kind of mixed signals to. But I was the feedback from last class, as we had it as a whole class. To me, that was the method that I was using for persons to revise and tweak their lesson plans. Some persons had an anticipation, more than one person had an anticipation that I was going to send real feedback, but in terms of responding in an email and giving comments. I've opened that up to persons who had not submitted a lesson plan or a draft lesson plan, really. So I know that the colleagues in Bermuda, some aren't teachers, so they were having some difficulty really capturing the lesson plan, drafting it a way forward, identifying a border crossing phenomenon. So it's in particular for them, I really did say in the class, send in the lesson plan, let me see, because they hadn't got a chance to do so in time for the class for the class last week. But I think really I was hoping that as persons share their lesson plans openly with everyone last week, that then as persons said, yes, that would work, that didn't, and people ask questions, that really was providing the feedback. But I just thank everyone for participating in that exercise last week and for submitting your assignments. If you haven't yet submitted your assignment, you still have time to do so. You can let me know if you're having any challenges or problems. But the ORVLE component still isn't ready. And, if you're to email me directly if you haven't done so already. I've seen some, but I haven't really checked on them as yet. I'd also emailed a journal article in preparation for your next assignment. It's almost a month away, so that you can start to interrogate what it is. Check on your course outline. You would have been given the requirements for that question, how to write your journal article. But again, feel free over the next 2 weeks as you're reading through to send me emails so that you can get some assistance if you need. All right. Well, I think that's about it. If there are no final comments or queries from anyone, then adieu.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
But I'll do mine tonight. I'll send mine tonight. Okay.
Next week.
This makes me laugh.